Well, everybody, I am very excited because friend, colleague, YouTuber, composer, all sorts of wonderful things, Alex Moukala is here. I don't think a lot of people know this, but I emailed you to ask about copyright issues, and you're the reason the channel even exists. So thank you for changing my life.
I mean, I can't take all the credit there. I'm sure you would have started the channel regardless. Because
I don't know. I was a little scared.
I remember from your email, like, it felt like you were pretty set on that. And it felt like... Not like, oh, I want to do this. It felt like, I need to do this. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and now here we are, 2 years later.
Dude, it's only been 2 years?
Yeah,
You published 1,000 videos in 2 years, dude.
Listen, when you have no other job and you're like, how do I... Well, I was a voice actor. I still am. But, like, you know, that's an audition, an hour here, an hour there. I was big sad when I started the channel, and I, you know, my dad had just passed, and I was like, how do I channel this grief? And over time, it's obviously evolved. But yeah, I mean, there's just so much, and 1,000 videos. I mean, it goes to show, like, what? There's like 40 plus years of video game history that we need to have people.
So today I want to talk about music. Like, my theme is going to be music from either games that didn't get much attention, but the music is banging, or composers who are very famous and released some songs on projects that didn't get very much attention, and they deserve a lot of attention. Have you ever played Stranger of Paradise, Final Fantasy Origin?
No.
Great. So I assume you must not have heard the music.
No, I've not heard the music of that.
Basically, this song is the main theme of Stranger of Paradise, Final Fantasy Origin, which is the Dark Souls spin of Final Fantasy. I mean, I don't know if it did very well. It cannot be compared to the sales of Dark Souls.
No.
But the music, especially this main theme, is banging. It was recorded with a real orchestra composed by Naoshi Mitsuta, who's, keep in mind, this is a guy who's an extremely great electronic music producer. Okay? He just does the most excellent electronic music, but somehow he's able to write stuff like this too. And if this was a song in Elden Ring, I think it would have millions of views on YouTube. Yeah, and the title also doesn't sell it. It's like
Jack's theme.
Yeah.
That's a shift.
Yeah. Check this out.
Oh, wow. Wow.
Jack's theme.
That's
Dude,
amazing.
this song, this orchestration is so detailed. There's so much life into it, so many shifts. By the title, like, Jack's theme. Who's Jack? Like, it sounds like a unidimensional character almost. You don't expect this grandeur from it, but it's freaking insane, incredible, beautiful writing. By the way, this is the same guy who wrote Caius Ballat's theme. This guy is cooking. Like, imagine, like, you're there, you cook this theme, you record it with this orchestra. It sounds incredible. The choir nails it. So many complicated passages, but it all flows so well. It's so full of life and dynamic. And it's like, yeah, this stands out in the heritage of Final Fantasy music. This, you can put it side to side with a Liberty Fatale, you know. It's
Definitely.
great. And then the game comes out and very few people play, unfortunately. So the song doesn't get as many views. Like, it has 80,000 views on YouTube. It deserves 800,000 minimum, but probably much more than that. If you have this same song on Elden Ring, it would fit perfectly, and I bet it would be one of the most popular tracks in the entire soundtrack. This guy is like, honestly, Naoshi Mizuta, insanely talented. Most people know him from Final Fantasy XI stuff because he wrote the music for that one. But again, he also makes incredible electronic music and stuff like this, and a lot of FF13-2 and Lightning Returns was from him.
I just started listening to 13.2 in earnest recently. It's really good stuff. And you know what's interesting to me about this is that, like, it really is a theme where you can, like, hear the different, and I love the shifting passages, because it feels to me like we're getting a character that's actually really complex and really even though his name's Jack, which is so funny.
Yeah.
It's like,
have you played FF1 at all?
I've dabbled. I have not, like, actually committed to it just yet.
I don't want to say anything. I don't want to spoil it, but
Right.
yeah, there's a reason why this character is extremely complex.
That's right, because isn't Stranger of Paradise a prequel to Final Fantasy?
It's a prequel to Final Fantasy 1.
That's
Yeah.
right. What I really admire about it is that we still get, like, a very strong melody throughout it, even though we have a lot of juxtaposition with real sharp edges, and
yeah.
we get a lot of sforzandi and crescendos and stuff. We're still getting a characterization that is nuanced, because we have epic, strong, especially with the brass and the heavy use of percussion and stuff, right?
Yeah.
But then on the flip side, we get this beautiful, like, violin that's, like, sort of gentle, and I love that, because it's three-dimensional, and it's really easy to, like, create a track that is like, okay, it's loud, it's one of my music professors talks about the idea of dynamic, not in volume but in layering, and how things flow, and it's so easy to one note it and keep it one style, whereas this had a lot of nuance, and so we get this sense that Jack is a strong character, but also has some sensitivity, which makes him much more interesting for us as listeners. You know what I mean?
That's exactly it. And, you know, the art of writing music that is dynamic in that sense is a lost art in a little bit, in a way. As somebody who writes orchestral music a lot on my computer and stuff, the temptation to write stuff that sounds insane from the start to end is so strong. And, you know, you could do that, but then the music suffers. You don't tell stories anymore with it. And that's one of the reasons why people often say, oh, orchestral music in games is so boring. It's not. But I think there's a fair amount of composers nowadays that write orchestral music in a way that's kind of lazy and not very detailed, doesn't really tell a story with dynamics and all these instruments. Like, I can't recall the last time I heard brass lines as insane as in this track, like the trombones going crazy in the middle of the track. It's like, whoa. Like, there's so much that you can do with an orchestral section, all these instruments, to tell a story. And the fact that you capture that essence of it just from listening to these ones, like, just shows what an amazing job Naoshi Mizuta did.
I mean, it's an amazing thing too, like how much gets lost if you're not paying attention, and, like, active musical listening is a thing that is not really taught, but anybody can do it. It's just a question of, like, sitting down and being like, oh, I'm hearing this brass section is really loud here, but then it gets quiet, and, like, I wonder if there's a reason for that, you know. And also, you mentioned a point about, you know, sort of lazy writing, and also the desire to make it not one note, but just kind of just be bombastic out the gate. And the thing is that even in singing, there was a sustained note, and my coach was like, you don't want to just hit the note and then just let it stay there, because not only is it uninteresting, but it's also going to hurt long term. It's not as fun. But if you, like, something so subtle that probably no one will pick up except for, like, maybe two people in an audience, but having a slow crescendo over a sustained note as a musician or singer is actually amazing. You know what I mean?
Yeah, dude, I was in a class with Conrad Pope, who's you know, John Williams, the legend. Conrad Pope is his orchestrator, and he worked with him in Harry Potter and Jurassic, like, so many of those films that John Williams did. And the orchestrator takes care of, like, making sure that, you know, whatever the composer wrote translates amazing to the orchestra. And Conrad was giving us this orchestration exercise where he asked us to analyze some music, some sheet music, and he asked us, why do you think the note is doing this dynamic change that keeps rising and falling? Because there was a sustained chord and it was rising and falling over time. And it's like, why do you think the composer chose to do it this way? And we couldn't figure it out. And it's like, because the movement, the song, that the composition was about the sea. specifically, and the composer was kind of like representing, I think, some seagulls just flying over, like kind of like this over the sea, and I'm like, that's crazy. Like, to think that music, that metaphorically you can describe so much with music, you know. And these are details that you don't have to capture. That's the beautiful thing about music. You don't have to. That's why sometimes people come to me and they're like, "Oh, I don't understand music as much as you do, so I shouldn't be able to share an opinion about it." I'm like, "What? Are you crazy?" Like, I had a conversation recently with somebody told me about Zelda Breath of the Wild and how they don't like the soundtrack because it's too minimal. But they're like, "But I'm ignorant, so I shouldn't be listening to." No, you have taste. You know, you like music for reasons that maybe you don't understand, but you feel them. If that sustained thing that you feel like there's a crescendo or a dynamic change, not everybody can explain why it affects people, but it does, right? We feel it. And this theme from, you know, Jack's theme, there's so much detail that even if I listen to it like 200 times, I'll keep noticing more things in it, for sure.
The little nuance. Yeah, I know.
Yeah. But the first time I heard it in its entirety, by giving it my full attention, I was like, whoa, that's insane. And that happened, I think, not while I was playing the game, but outside of the game. Because Stranger of Paradise is a very intense game.
Yeah.
And it can distract you from, you know, the music a bit. So that's what happened to me.
You know what's funny about that? Actually, this is a good segue into my piece. But I remember when I first started the channel, I did a lot of Dark Souls 3 stuff because it's actually my favorite of the that and Bloodborne. Bloodborne more, but
Dude,
Dark Souls 3.
Bloodborne is the best.
Oh, so good. So I didn't remember any of the music from Dark Souls 3 because it had been like 3 years since I had like played it, and I knew Game Plus like +5 or whatever. And people were like, "Well, you're clearly lying. You don't remember." And it's like, no, bro. Like, who's paying attention to the music while fighting the Abyss Watchers? Not me. You know what I mean? I'm like, I suck, so I'm just like trying not to die. So people were like, "Well, it's like, no, I truly don't remember any of this because I removed it from my mind." But so. One of the cool things about I just did a series of Shadow. Have you played Shadow of the Erdtree by chance?
Not yet.
Do you want a musical spoiler?
Sure.
I sort of decided after playing Elden Ring that I didn't have and learning about the difficulty of Shadow of the Erdtree, I just was like, you know what? I don't think my Italian anger can maintain, and I'm not an angry person, but I was like, I don't think I can do it. So I just decided to just spoil myself completely with the music. This particular track, Midra, Lord of Frenzied Flame.
Oh shit! You fight him? That's cool.
It's pretty incredible, actually. And this particular track is certainly a standout to me from what I heard of the soundtrack, and it's really exceptional.
I like it already.
Yeah, it's crunchy.
Whoa. What? Dude.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
The low strings with the heavy I know. This is on the same level as Ludwig to me.
This sounds more insane still.
Yeah.
Oh my god, dude. This is so scary. That's actually scary. Dude.
Uh-huh. You hear that's creepy string up top?
I love that. Like the scratching.
Yeah, the real pressing into the string. I know.
Oof. That's so insidious. And this,
yeah,
it's so cool. Whoa! Okay. Dude.
That's phase 1. Here's phase 2.
That's phase 1? What the hell? This is so insane. Oh, it's a Vods again. Ooh. That's so sinister, man.
The violin's a motif that you hear in the game. It's weird, this clash.
Yeah, it's this dissonant harmonies. This is crazy Bloodborne vibes. What the hell? Oh my god. Whoa. I love the harmony so much, man.
Yeah.
Good lord, man. Wow.
And it just pitters out. Isn't that crazy?
That is insane. That is literally like, wow. Like, it actually heavy to listen to as well. Again, we were talking before about how, you know, you can use, like, orchestras are not boring if you use them right. This is an example, right? You know how you played Elden Ring, like the first bit without the expansion. And when you run into that tower where you see you get frenzy, if you let the frenzy flame get to the top, you get the fire in your eyes and you fucking die, right? I expect that's kind of what probably happened to the composer after it was done with this track. It's like, this is insanely detailed, very hard, and like it challenges you as a composer to write something that is actually crazy. Because writing music like this is not like, oh yeah, I'm gonna write whatever I think of. Like, it doesn't have to match harmonies, whatever. No. You have to be very specific about which moments you want to sound harmonious and which moments you want to sound terrifying. Like the terrifying aspect of this track comes from the fact that you sort of understand it, and then there's moments where it just goes crazy in a way that is completely uncontrollable, and you're like, yo, I didn't expect that. Like, it really, like, you don't expect the crazy in it, and sometimes it sinks in with small details like that violin that gets dissonant for just one note, and you're like, oh, that's kind of disgusting. Also, the orchestra, there's all those timpani like doing those rolls, and in the on top of that, you have the strings going like the weird clusters and stuff. So this orchestra is really coming together to do musical movements that are not necessarily like melodies or whatever, but they represent this character in terms of mood and vibe. This is the same thing that happened in Bloodborne. One of my favorite themes is Moon Presence, the one with the dissonant choir that is just freaking insane. Even though the boss is super easy to beat, that choir makes you so freaking scared. And it's not a melody, right? You cannot necessarily like whistle it or whatever, because you need all the different stacks of choir to create the dissonances, but it's like a figure of music that represents the character. And this theme was full of those moments. I think it went even harder than the Bloodborne soundtrack. I still like the Bloodborne soundtrack more, I think, but this is probably the first time that I hear something in a FromSoft game that is not Bloodborne that blows my mind to this level. Like, nothing came close to Bloodborne. But this one does.
It feels on par with a lot of the stuff from Bloodborne, like Ludwig the Holy Blade or something. And I think part of it too, one of the things that I really find admirable about this, I was just thinking about it while you were talking too, is that it feels like we don't get the melody right, we don't get that. It's almost like you have to like unearth the layers of the onion, and as you start to like really dig and you get to the core, that's when the composer is sort of like, surprise, here's your little nugget of melody after all this time of essentially like making you feel like you're being pressed down into the ground with this overly oppressive soundscape, only to then be saved by the melody. But the melody is not an inviting one. The melody is a terrifying one. You know what I mean?
And that's a metaphor also for
waltz.
Yeah, it was a waltz, and that's also a metaphor for, I guess Midra, because whatever he was before becoming the Lord of Frenzied Flame is, this now is basically gone. You have to dig deep to find it, and when you find it, it's still like corrupted and unsalvageable. That's the vibe I got from this.
That's pretty accurate based on what I've seen.
Dude, you know what this made me think of? This is so stupid. But when I was younger, I really enjoyed Final Fantasy X and Final Fantasy X soundtrack a lot. Mm-hmm. Especially one track I liked a lot. It was the Hymn of the Faith. Did you play FF10?
Of course, yeah. Hymn of the Faith. Right. It was so good.
And so one time I was singing it in my room, and then my mom, a few hours later, she's like, "What were you doing?" I'm like, "What? What do you mean? Were you doing some kind of satanic rite or whatever?" I'm like, "What?" "Yeah, you were singing a weird song. What was that?" I'm like, "Oh, Mom, that's Final Fantasy. What the hell?" And I'm like, wow, my mom thought the Hymn of the Faith is satanic. My mom is super Christian or whatever. So, I'm like, if she heard this, she'd probably like bring me to church and be like, "Save my son. He's gone far the deep end."
There's that one Hymn of the Faith that is a little bit crunchy. There's a little bit of dissonance. Which one is that?
Yeah, the Unalesca.
Yeah, the Unalesca one.
I love that one. There's the weird chord at the end. It's like, oh. She's not good people.
What do you have next?
I have something else. So, have you played a game called Persona 5?
Yes.
Did you enjoy it?
No.
Really? Was it too slow? What's the thing?
No. It just was too long. I got 100 hours in. No joke. I know. I didn't dislike it, but I got 100 hours in. I played it when it first came out. I was in grad school. I was at opera school, and I was like, all right, it's how much longer is this? And it was another 20 hours. And I was like, I can't. So I stopped literally 2 dungeons before the end. The last thing I did was the desert, I think.
Oh, okay. Well, but then, when that game came out, basically what happened is the soundtrack was super fresh compared to most other soundtracks that came out in games in history. People started to think that Persona 5 invented jazz because for the first time in their life, they heard the 9th chord or a 7th, major 7th. And they're like, yo!
What is this?
Jazz! And I'm like, for me, as a fan of acid jazz and funk and stuff, I'm like, fuck, that's great. I love that more people are discovering, jazz music and funk and bands like Jamiroquai, etc. But it's pretty funny to see people being like,
my dad
"Oh, it
used to
gives me
listen to
Persona 5 vibes."
My dad loved Jamiroquai. I mean, that's stuff I like grew up listening to in the 90s.
Same. I still now I listen to them almost every day. By the way, the Persona 5 is not even jazz. It's like jazz fusion. That's very specific genre, and it's acid jazz, which is different from pure jazz. But what they have in common is the harmonic language of jazz is very present in Persona 5. So those weird harmonies that you hear in Persona 5, yeah, they're present in jazz. But people are like, Persona 5 invented this. It didn't. There's also lots of musicians who did this before. But then they're like, okay, well, it invented it in video games. It did not. I'm going to show you one track that did the Persona 5 sound before it was cool, from a game called Ragnarok Online.
Oh, Ragnarok Online. I just featured this in a video recently.
Really?
Like a harpsichord. Oh, God.
Aldebaran
Yeah.
theme? Oh, dude, that's one of my favorite themes.
I almost brought that.
Yeah? I played that game a lot.
This is so fun. A lot of people played this game. I didn't even know it existed.
Yeah, I think it was from 2003. So Persona 5 comes in 2017, right? That's when it got released.
Yeah.
This was 14 years before. So let's check it out.
Yeah, Ragnarok Online, Can't Go Home Again, Baby. Oh. Oh, listen to that bass.
Yeah! I love that bass line, man.
What? That's
Yeah! Such a vibe.
Man, for real.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. I wish that was longer.
I know, right?
So
This is
satisfying.
such a vibe. And, in Ragnarok Online, music would just loop on forever. It would just be like, in between loops, there would be like a, 5-second break of silence, and then the music will kick in again. It's kind of like Genshin Impact. The music binds you to the game because it's so good.
Yeah.
And you're like, well, I want to stay here. Ragnarok Online was made by, I think, a Korean team. And the composers were a team of Korean composers. And it has so many genres and styles in it. You're like, whoa. And so many of these songs are, to this day, incredible bangers and more detailed than most music in games nowadays. This sort of sonority, like if you put this track in Persona 5, it just fits like a glove, especially if you put it in something like Yusuke's Madrame's Palace, which is Yusuke's mentor. It would just fit in there. Not to replace Persona 5 soundtrack. That soundtrack is freaking incredible. It's goated.
Yeah.
It's amazing, but it's not the soundtrack that invented this. This came out 2003 or 2004 or something, which was 13 years before Persona 5. And even outside of Ragnarok, there is another game that did the Persona 5 sound, and the craziest thing happened. The composer who created a soundtrack with the P5 sound got so much backlash within this game that she basically retired. She's like, I'm done with this shit. I'm done making music for games. She's I think her name is Noriko Matsueda, and she's the composer for Final Fantasy X-2.
Oh.
The Backlash was this game takes place in the same exact world, Spira. The maps are also very similar to the FF10, but because Square went from SquareSoft to Square Enix, and Sakaguchi and Uematsu left the company, I think.
Yeah.
They had to kind of, choose other composers, and because of copyright reasons, they couldn't reuse the music from FF10. So they went with Noriko Matsueda and another guy, which I forget the name of. And together they created a new identity for the music of Spira, which a lot of it had vibes that were very jazzy. And there's some tracks that are literally like Persona 5 themes in style, in instrumentation, in everything. There's a track called we won't listen to it now, but it's called Sphere Hunter Team, if I'm not wrong.
I've heard of that.
If you listen to it, it's like Persona 5. And it got so much backlash that she retired. 10 or more years later, Shoji Meguro comes and he writes a soundtrack in that style and gets lauded as the most innovative game composer of all times. He's not. He's great. He's amazing. And the Persona sound is unique. Persona as a series in itself is like awesome,
yeah.
But it's not the first time that we hear this in games. Sometimes you have the most amazing songs, but for whatever reason, the game doesn't get as much, popularity.
Yeah, the boost.
And so people don't listen to the music, and I'm like, that kind of breaks my heart a bit.
I had somebody on who was like, I'm listening to this and this sounds incredible, and yet it's tied to a game. So even though that's great, it's like someone slaves over creating something so like whatever emotion or profound or whatever, and there are people that will never hear it because of the game based on the popularity or based on whatever factors. And such an interesting situation where at the end of the day, like it's a gig, but also like you want to like have your music be appreciated, and if no one hears it or no one comes to the performance or whatever, it's like just spent.
Well, it's the same thing as a YouTuber, and the reverse is also true. Like sometimes there's artists who get discovered thanks to games, so it's not it can be either one or either, but it's the same thing as being a YouTuber. You may create. I don't know if that happened to you. Like sometimes you may have videos that get extremely popular and people praise you, you're like, oh, you're so passionate, I see it in this video, and then you make another video where you're even more passionate, but it's about subject matter that nobody cares about, and so nobody sees it, and you were I get sometimes people are like, they comment they say, oh, you're so passionate in the videos where I was the least passionate, and the ones where I was the most passionate, they don't care. People project a lot. But as a YouTuber, you may put a lot of effort in a video that's really good, but then for whatever reason, the thumbnail is not really appetible or whatever. People don't check it out.
Anybody who's watching this, it's not a dig at you for the record, but like there are a couple videos, mostly opera related, that I loved making. And if you love this game, you'll love this opera. Is a prime video. Yeah, fuck it. I'm gonna link it right here. Watch this video.
Hell yeah, watch it, dude. I started going to opera, by the way, only recently.
Yeah.
I've seen, what's the Verdi one? Nabucco.
Oh, Nabucco. Nice.
Dude, I lost my mind. I'm like, every Soulsborne fan needs to watch Nabucco. Needs to go watch Nabucco. It's basically, the precursor of boss music.
Yeah.
Sorry, go on. I just wanted to say that.
All that's good. That's a good first one. That's not your first option.
No, that was the third time I go to the opera.
Okay, good. What are the other two? Hang on. A side note.
I went to watch, the first one was La Traviata.
Of course.
And the second was Cavalleria Rusticana and Pagliacci.
Nice. That's a good second. I mean, most people wouldn't go to that for a second. That's pretty good.
Yeah. I studied those things in school in Italy, and so I was kind of curious. But also my girlfriend is a huge opera buff, and so she's like recommended some.
Oh, I'm so excited for you. This is like a new world. I'm over here like, ooh, you got to go see Un Ballo in Maschera. You got to go see, oh man. Okay. Anyway, what's funny is that this is complete tangent, but who cares? I don't really like care or like really think about opera anymore. But when I hear it, like if I, if like it comes up in conversation or something, it like taps into that part of me that still is like right there in the industry. That makes me so happy. I'm excited for you. There's just such a world. I'll never forget. When I was in undergrad, I used to every Friday. I was so madly in love with opera before I got into the industry and realized how shitty it is. But the actual like purity of the performance and creation of opera. Every Friday, I would sit down in the music listening lab and I would watch or listen to a new opera. And so people are like, what about the context? And it's like, I spent my entire time just like listening to stuff with no context. You just kind of figure it out as you go. And it was such an incredible period of discovery. So I'm excited for you to like be able to actually see this stuff. And I will say like things like Madama Butterfly, like the act one finale duet can be a little bit boring because it's literally 20 minutes of them just like singing to each other about how much they love each other. But it's 10 minutes actually, not 20. But what's really amazing is that actually seeing it in context really shifted my perspective on it as well, which is why context does matter. But Butterfly is another one where like you listen to it once and you're like, okay, cool. You see it and you're like, whoa. And then you listen to it again and you're like, holy shit. It's weird how like it stacks on itself. Anyway, this is like a total different, I'm so excited for
this. This is not a different, this is the same thing game music does. Like when you write game music, that's what you gotta do. Like you gotta make sure that people have different reactions the more time they listen to, a track. And sometimes that makes it a bit hard as a composer when you have to, send tracks to a game director because maybe they don't get it at first. And I think that happened a lot to Nobuo Uematsu. Not a lot, but that happened. Like, for example, One Winged Angel is one of the tracks that when he wrote it, somebody at the company was like, I don't understand this. I don't think this is a good idea. This doesn't sound like a good piece of music. And Uematsu's like, just trust me. Just trust me. And then it came out, and it's the most popular track in the entire series
ever made.
Sometimes you gotta think like 3 steps ahead, and that may include 3 steps ahead of your collaborators, like the game company. If a director trusts you, that's when you get the best ideas out. But if game directors don't trust you, they're afraid the fans are not gonna get it. They underestimate the intelligence of fans. Sometimes the music suffers,
I had a friend that was like, is there any bad video game music? Which I'm on the journey to find. Sure. Of course there is, but he was like, it's interesting because it's, at the end of the day, it's also there to help sell a product. And if the music is bad, then the product suffers. So the music can't inherently be bad. It's a very interesting conversation. You know what I mean? Like
that's why I consider what I'm about to say is the reason why I consider that every game soundtrack is actually a collaboration. Like when I write a soundtrack, I don't feel like I made it by myself. I made it together with the game directors, game dev team, if they gave me feedback, because sometimes decisions are not made by me. Like there's a game director that I'm working with, which very often in my music is like, oh wow, I like it, but in this spot it kind of goes dark. Can you make it go higher? And he implies like, I want the melody to like, he likes melodies that kind of reach for higher semitones as opposed to go down, because when they go down, it makes him feel sad and he wants the game to be a bit happy. And sometimes I do harmonies that are a bit like, oh, there's a dark chord here out of nowhere, and then it goes back to being bright. And I love that shit. It's a bit of chiaroscuro of music, but it's like, no, don't do that. I'm like, well, it's your game, I won't do it. But, sometimes you don't make those choices. But that chiaroscuro chord that I replaced with something brighter may have made the track more special. Like, to be fair, even this director I'm talking about, I love working with him. My nightmare is like the idea of one day finding a director who just doesn't let me do good music.
Micromanages everything.
Stuff. Yeah. And I haven't... That hasn't been my experience.
I know you're a huge fan of Nier and Keiichi Okabe, of course, Okabe-san, and you're friends with Oliver at Monaca or whatever, who did Stellar Blade. I think it's only fair that we listen to some. I don't even know if he composed this, by the way. So
let's listen to it. Somebody at Monaca did.
This comes out later in the game. I'm not going to say anything about it. If you ever get the chance and have like 20 hours, I highly recommend playing through Stellar Blade. I
will play it when my girlfriend is not watching. So I don't have to explain myself.
Meanwhile, I showed my fiance was next to me. She's like, okay.
Yeah. By the way, but actually, my girlfriend knows about this because my girlfriend is a Korean teacher, and so she's aware. Oh, there's this game coming from Korea. It's a pretty big deal.
All right, well, let's listen to Raven here. This is Raven from Stellar Blade.
Ooh. Oh. Oh my god.
Oh, it's wild, dude.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Is it a boss theme?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Big boss theme. Yeah.
I was waiting for that.
Yeah.
Oh my god. Dude.
Oh, yeah, man.
What the hell? That's amazing.
Yeah.
Wow. It's basically K-pop.
Yeah.
So metallic also.
Uh-huh.
Ha! Wow!
just a slow ramp up here too. Crazy. Yeah, I know. Yeah, man, I know. It's dope.
Oh my god, dude.
Yeah, yeah. It's sick.
God, it's so amazing. I love when the
Low
effects on
brass.
the vocals. That brass. So sick, man. Oh my god, that's so much fun. Whoa.
Yeah, the crunch.
What the hell? Whoa. Oof. Dude, this is freaking insane, honestly. Nice, dude.
Isn't that wild?
That's insane. I didn't know you like this type of music.
Oh, bro, yeah, oh yeah, I do.
Dude, God, I was googling to see who made it. There's no information yet, I think, because the soundtrack hasn't gotten released yet. Whoever did this, congratulations. Like, you know, I wonder what a music listener who doesn't know music production, what they think when they hear stuff like this. Because when I hear that, I'm like, oh my god, I'm like sweating, because the writing music in this style is insanely hard. There's so many sounds that were used during the production of this song, and they are not just using a wide array of sounds, they're just mixing them together in ways that are very unconventional, and they keep changing them up. Like, there's some sounds that move from left to right, there's some sounds that just, you know, they add reverb to them, they add like effects and stuff like that. And the singer, for example, she's great, by the way. She's awesome. She portrays the character very well, because in the way she's singing, like, she's changing this. Some moments she sounds like she's about to attack you, and some moments she's more melodic and more, you know, laid back or whatever. So her character changes a lot throughout the song, but they process her voice a lot too, to kind of not only glitch her up, but just change her character a lot. Like make her sound like a monster. It sounds like a person that is losing their mind. Either a person or maybe like a robot that believes they're human or something, and they act up certain emotions, whatever. Thinking of Nier right now. But there's a genre of music that's called IDM, which stands for intelligent dance music. There's some artists there's one called The Flashbulb, which does like really crazy shit. Not to this level of extremeness, but the mindset behind it is kind of similar to this. There's an album he made called Arboreal. And if you listen to it, I think you're going to enjoy it a lot. And,
IDM? Cool, I didn't know about that
IDM,
genre.
yeah. What I like a lot about this theme from Stellar Blade is that it's wild, it's insane, it's, but it somehow is very easy to listen to. And the reason why they made it's easy to listen to, one, the rhythm is pretty much locked. Like there's a lot of stuff happening, but like the main beat like tries to stay constant. But most especially the through line that holds your hand is the singer.
Yeah,
like
yeah.
That phrase that she keeps singing. Someone may think, oh, that's boring. No, it's there because they want to guide you through the song, through the madness of the song. If you remove that singing, you may just get confused because there's no element that keeps recurring the same way, right? It's very smart. The production quality is incredible, and also like this is not a very normal music genre, I would say. So finding a way to make all these sounds work together in a way that sounds pristine, etc., must have been super duper hard.
The crazy thing is that this is just one, like, the styles in this game. You got some classical operatic singing. You have some, like, hardcore, like, heavy metal. You also have some, like, straight up, like, Nier mixed with jazz. You also then have this. Yeah, I mean, I'm telling you, like, Stellar Blade, regardless of whatever weird controversy or discussions around it, musically, Stellar Blade is a complete package from start to finish, and it was one of the most musical experiences. I would love it for it to win Music of the Year. Not that the Game Awards matters at all, but which it doesn't, zero. But like this piece, in terms of the sheer variety, there's something in here for everybody. It's exceptional.
Yeah,
this is one track.
This is one of those tracks that, kind of like Persona 5 will introduce a lot of people to music genres they didn't know, Yeah. And this made me think of another game on PS2. It's called Zone of the Enders.
Oh, yeah, of course. Yeah.
And when I played that game as a kid, I was like, whoa, electronic music is so cool. I already loved electronic music a lot at that time, but that game is like, whoa, I didn't know you can make electronic music that is so thematic and melodic and still very like grooving and cybernetic. It was super cool, and this seems like an upgrade of that. Haven't heard anything that made me as excited as Zone of the Enders in terms of electronic music and games for forever, basically. One that got closed was Scaramouche's theme.
Yeah,
it's
sure,
very cybernetic and stuff. But I think Zone of the Enders goes harder, but this one goes beyond Zone of the Enders even, which is impossible, but they managed.
Yeah.
And I love to see, like, a Korean team just making games. Like, there's loads of games from Japan and America and Canada and Europe and stuff, but what about Korea? And, they're finally putting themselves out there. Next up, I have a track from a very famous composer. Have you played Lost Odyssey?
I played the first 10 hours.
Oh, then you must have heard the track The NeverEnding Journey?
Isn't that is that the one that plays when the letters show up and or the?
I mean, I haven't played it actually, so I just know the soundtrack.
I don't know then. Probably. Maybe.
You may. Okay. Well, I think you might have, but let's just play it because this is a theme from Nobuo Uematsu that he wrote for a game called Lost Odyssey. That basically after him and Sakaguchi left Square Enix, Sakaguchi started Mistwalker game company, and they made a bunch of games together. And Uematsu made those soundtracks. And very unfortunately, those soundtracks didn't get the same attention that Final Fantasy soundtracks get.
Of course.
But they deserve it, So this theme I'm about to share with you is one of my favorites. The first time I heard it, blew my freaking mind, to be honest.
Nice harmony.
Yeah.
Oh, stop.
Yes.
That's funny. Let me just pull back. That's so
Yep.
funny. Wow. Yeah, I'd never heard that before.
Dude, when the guitar kicks in, already before the guitar kicks in, I'm like, God.
It's something else. You know what it reminds me of? There's a famous liturgical piece called Misa Criolla, which is by composer Ariel Ramirez. And it's one of the first settings of the Roman Catholic Mass following the decision of the Second Vatican Council to allow the use of vernacular languages in Catholic churches around the world. And so the entire thing is in Spanish. And it has the exact same soundscape. And so the minute literally the first like strum of the rhythm and stuff reminds me very much of that. Now that has choir and like a tenor solo for about 20 minutes. But this is just like use of like, it like sounds like traditional flute, whatever flute that is. Like
that must be like, I've looked it up because I'm like, I gotta use this in my games. This is called the quena, I think.
Is it Peruvian or
I think so, yeah. In general speaking, like South American, but I think Peruvian.
The sound quality is so pure, and it really does lend itself to that, especially if it's a map theme, like that feeling of sense of discovery. And I just love that Uematsu, since we know that the prog rock sound, we can't escape that sound quality. I just love that electric guitar just like coming in and just like smacking you in the face. God, that's so satisfying.
I love it.
So good.
My favorite thing about it is the bass line. Well, when the guitar kicks in, there's this huge bass, like do, like it really like propels you forward. The guitar is obviously stealing the show as it deserves, but the bass is so cool and so full, and most especially, I love you mentioned this piece of music from Spanish culture. I'm like, that's awesome. That's what I'm talking about. Like the best game music, in my opinion, is the game music that exposes you to sonorities you haven't heard, and the best game music, in my opinion, is inspired by stuff outside of games. Composers borrow from things that you as a gamer may not have heard because they're not from games, and then they wrap it in a nicely knit package with new melodies and everything and give it to you. And that's what Uematsu has done throughout his career, and even after Final Fantasy he keeps doing that. And the songs, the music he keeps writing, like the latest album he made was Fantasian, and I kind of promised him and Sakaguchi that I would help promote the game as much as I could. I interviewed them like a few years ago. Dude, that game, the soundtrack is such an amazing nostalgic trip down memory lane if you played Final Fantasy, because it kind of brings back those sonorities in a way more modern fashion compared to like the Final Fantasy 1 to 10. But what I like a lot about this Lost Odyssey theme is, again, you notice the South American traditional flutes like the quena. Another instrument I like a lot, which I think was used here, is the ronroco or charango. Those are two traditional South American sort of like guitar instruments, but much smaller, and they have a specific sound to them. And the other composer that made them very famous is Gustavo Santaolalla from The Last of Us. And Gustavo is another composer who's like Uematsu, extremely famous because of some specific games he made. He made The Last of Us. His discography is full of amazing stuff.
Yes, I was just about to say that.
Yeah, he has an album. What's the name of the album? I think it's called
Camino.
Probably that too. Because like Is that the album he made while going around Argentina?
I think, yes, Camino, yeah. I'm almost positive. Alma, Vamos. I'm a big fan. I didn't mean to cut you off, but
No.
yes, his discography is really good.
Dude, have you checked out his first band, Arcoiris?
Maybe. I went through a really hardcore Santaolalla phase.
Yeah.
So I
There's
may have.
infinite amounts of music to sift through. I went to, like, he did a Last of Us concert in London, and I was invited there to host a masterclass after the concert with him, and I would ask him questions. And the only soundtrack of him that I knew was The Last of Us. So I was like, I don't want to be a dick and just sit down with this 70-year-old composer who's had a long life, long career, and just ask him about the one soundtrack I know about him, of the 10,000 he made. So I looked up information about him, and I found, the Camino and Ronroco albums, and that blew my mind. And then I found his first band called Arcoiris and his first album that he wrote like when he was 20 or something. Dude, that guy at 20 had way more talent than I will ever have in my life, I think. He was singing, playing guitar and stuff. It's super eclectic music. I would highly recommend checking that out. Yeah. But that's a crazy tangent. But this is like, this track, The Lost Odyssey, is just to prove a point that sometimes composers, write incredible music for games, and it breaks my heart when everybody, it's like, oh, we love Nobuo Uematsu, as long as he makes Final Fantasy music. If he releases an album that doesn't have Final Fantasy in it, I don't care. Why? This is incredible! There's no way this only has 300,000 views.
I was thinking about this because we're about to cross into some interesting territory. I uploaded a video sort of talking about Yu-Peng Chen's latest works in Fantasyland, and I find it really interesting because Genshin Impact as a sort of like game has a huge, colossal reach over every country, But so now, as a composer who used to work for them and is venturing off and creating his own work, it's impossible for it to reach the way it used to.
Yeah.
And you would hope that the people that enjoyed the game would also enjoy the music of, that the individual who made it.
That's the thing. They would if they cared to find it.
Because it's handed to them, right, in the game. But to do the like exploration required to unravel what the sound, because especially in this particular case, the music does eerily sound very similar. And this is what you and I have talked about this, but it almost feels like Genshin was the vehicle for Yu-Peng Chen, but not the actual like. He was the composer, but it was actually like his way of like sort of launching his sound existed regardless of Genshin, right?
Yes.
I find it very interesting, like for composers who establish themselves in a medium to then be like, no, I'm actually like a composer, like not just for this thing. And to have people really tune into that is I don't really know where I'm going with this. I have no point, but all that to say.
Listen, like if we have more time, I have some other tracks lined up here that specifically, I have a track from a very famous composer who even won awards and stuff recently. And he released an album that it means a lot to him personally. And it's so fucking cool. And I'm like, wow, the amount of attention he's getting is super marginal compared to like his game soundtracks. I'm like, even though the quality is there, the music sounds very much like him. I'm like, if you put that in the game, it works perfectly. But people are like sleeping. I don't know. This is probably a consequence also of us as a society being used now to being fed stuff by the algorithms, and we just expect to hear about stuff. Like the algorithms are gonna suggest the things that we would like. But no, we have to actively sit down and search for them and just be like, what happened to Nobuo Uematsu? And just Google, find his Twitter, see what he's been up to. Like he's been publishing so many soundtracks after Final Fantasy, and they're good.
Well, I guess I'm also part of that group because I didn't realize that Uematsu had been putting out a lot of stuff outside of.
I am too. Like I try to make an effort to like keep up with stuff. It's not very easy, but at the same time, it's not as impossible as people think it is.
It's a quick Google search. Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
Have you ever listened to or reacted to "This Is What You Are" from Warframe?
I think I listened to it literally like 2 days ago because my friend, a streamer by the name Miabyte, she's obsessed with Warframe.
Oh, I just met Miabyte.
Oh, you met her, yeah.
Yeah.
And she was telling me like, dude, you gotta check out Warframe music. They're doing a 90s expansion now. They have a boy band.
Oh, yes, the boy band, yes.
And I was like, I don't think I've heard Warframe. Show me some things. She sent me "This Is What You Are." That's the track with the Erhu, right?
Yeah. Okay, so you just heard that, so I won't do that. Hold on. That track is...
Mia stole the spot.
She really did. I just met her, too. She's so nice. Well, not anymore. I don't know. Warframe has incredible login music. Like, and and I literally just met them last week, so we talked about this. They sit down and will take the time to really create literally something that people are just logging in and they skip. Not even a main menu, like literally like log into the sign in. What I want to do is show you the Whispers in the Wall login screen. It's dope as hell.
So there's many different login screens depending on what the expansion?
Per update.
Whoa. Dude. That's awesome.
This is a Void Tongue made-up language.
That's Dune.
Yeah, for sure.
Sounds kind of Gregorian as well.
Now, most people have already logged in. They don't even hear this part.
No way. Like, for me, I hear this, I stay in the login screen as long as it keeps going. That's amazing. Dude, the harmonies are so good.
You get some throat singing in here, too.
Oh, man. Ooh. Wow. That was amazing. Like I'm learning a lot, you know, as a composer. I'm just soaking it all in because this is all stuff that is super cool. And as soon as I hear stuff like this, I'm like, oh, I wanna do something like that too, you know, just for fun. It's freaking incredible. Gets me kind of curious about the story, like the context, why they chose this musical colors, and like, have you played this expansion?
Yeah.
What's the idea?
It's hard to explain.
Wait, I'll ask you something. Is this invented language, is it part of the lore of the game? Do they use it in the game
Void
too?
Tongue? Yeah, I mean, yes. If I recall correctly, someone in the comments will let me know. But yes, Void Tongue is it's so complicated that it's very difficult to actually properly explain. But
is Warframe like a free-to-play game?
Yeah, you can download it right now. So here's the problem. One of the inherent problems with Warframe, and I'm going to say it's a problem, but it's not really, is that it takes like 20 to 40 hours to get to the story. And the reason why is that when the game came out, there was no story. And so for the first however many hours, you literally just were going from planet to planet, unlocking each node on the planet, getting to the junction, going to the next planet, and doing that, right? And it wasn't until I think it was 2017 that they were like, surprise, there's a story. Wow. And the thing is, and the reason why the payoff is worth it, now here I go, this is my Warframe soapbox, I just did this with my friend Roger yesterday. The thing is, when you get to Neptune, if you follow all the things and get to Neptune, when the second dream starts, that's the name, that's where you hear This Is What You Are, that song, so on and so forth. All of a sudden, the whole thing just opens up. It's like a Shadowbringers bait and switch.
Ooh.
But even bigger. If that, I don't want to blow it out of proportion.
Wait, is that why the number one comment on This Is What You Are is like, this is the best character screen creation after 200 hours? Like, somebody was talking about.
I don't know. I can't. As a Warframe player, I'm not allowed to tell you.
You will not. Okay.
Let me just say that I was like, is it really worth doing this? Because this is a long investment. And one of my mods who plays Warframe was like, yes. And I was like, how? And I was like, is it like Shadowbringers? Because, you know, Shadowbringers, it's a big twist. Yeah. And they were like, it's my favorite twist, actually. I don't know about you, but like, dude, Shadowbringers?
That is still the best FF14 expansion.
Oh.
They didn't.
Hands down.
I don't know if they can top that game. Like, even with Final Fantasy in general, like, going forward, I'm like, good luck. topping shot. Not that I want them to. I don't want everything to be better than what came before.
Yeah, of course.
There's aspects of other expansions that I'm sure are much better than Shadowbringers. Like Endwalker, for example, had better pacing. Like the pacing, you can't defeat that. But Shadowbringers, it's special. It's really special.
Warframe, same. Damn. Like something happens where, and this is the thing where you're playing for 40 hours and you think to yourself like, this is a waste of time. I mean, everything gets
it makes no sense.
Flipped. And it's one of these moments. And then the best and worst is that then you start to get these human stories. Like a story all about grief and what it means to be a father, and like, you know, willingly, you know, creating a thing around like what it means to be an outcast in society, but like not like oh they're an outcast, like literally like trying to understand the reason why people are shunned and what they do when they are shunned. And I'm telling you, man, like let's just say that the characters get like it's.
That sounds like my type of game.
It's so psychological, and it's like there is an Avengers component at one point, but like the build up to that is if you got the time, make the time.
That's my problem. That's my problem, dude. There's so many. You know, I hang out with Austin Wintory and Troy Baker a bunch. Sometimes we travel somewhere, and our friend Andrea Pessino as well. And when we talk, they talk about, you know, films they've watched and games and TV series, and I'm like, I haven't watched or played any of this stuff, like, and they're like iconic, like everybody has watched or played or whatever, and I'm like, I'd love to, but I don't have time. It's always the biggest problem, so I have to be very selective, but I'll definitely add Warframe to my list, you know.
Yeah, for sure. We're the same. I mean, my fiance, there's a whole bunch of movies that she's never seen, and so what I have forced her to do, that's weird, but
it's a Clockwork Orange with like
well, actually, hilariously, we have a thing called Friday Classic Movie Friday, where every Friday, because she has not seen a lot of stuff, and Clockwork Orange is next on the list, which is really funny that you said that. That's what we do in order to, like, we schedule out like 3 hours where we just like have to watch something that we have, movies. Yeah, whether I've seen it or she has or not, you know.
My relationship with my girlfriend is reversed. Like she has watched so many movies of any kinds except horror, and I'm like, I feel so dumb in comparison. And she was like, okay, let's watch this again. Like, I don't mind watching this again, but you gotta watch it. The last one we watched was 12 Angry Men.
Really that's a great one. Yeah.
Can we do one more track, by the way? Do we have time?
Yeah, we're good. Yeah, I'm good if you're good.
Okay. I promised this composer. I met him in Los Angeles. And I met him I was doing an interview or something, and he was telling me, I have this new album coming out. It means a lot to him, but it was a new thing. Basically, he's been making music for the most amazing TV series, the most amazing, films, and then games. And now he came up with this metal concept album, which is inspired by The Dark Side of the Moon in terms of like,
oh, cool.
You know, the structure of it. It's an insane album, and I want more people to listen to it. The way he talked to me about it, I saw him get so excited, and I'm like, okay, this must be super special, and it is. So I want to show you this track.
Oh, Bear.
Yeah, that's Bear. So Bear, notoriously, like, he's a legend. He's great, honestly.
Yeah.
Like, he's writing music for the Lord of the Rings TV show, which
of
that
course.
Soundtrack is
God of War and
yeah. But let's check out this album. So
this is called Tatarigami.
Tatarigami.
Yeah. All right, let's do it. Oh, cool. That's cool.
What the fuck?
Dude.
Coming out of the dark, not a wanted to run from a beast covered in scars with the heart of poison.
Wow.
And no time to retreat. I can't sound the alarm. The only time is now. There's a line to be drawn, and it's taking its form on its way through the fields. I can't listen to reason. I can't be safe to be healed. It's on the edge of explosion, on the eve of the crime. The razor's edge of violence. Step up, pay the sacrifice. There's a demon in me. There's a demon in me. I come to file the shine in a rage so cruel, and I'm malevolent die in a plague of wounds, and not stayed by stones, and not stopped by swords, and not loved in kind, or burnt by torch. It's on the edge of explosion, on the eve of the crime. The razor's edge of violence. Step up, pay the sacrifice.
The throat singing.
Yeah.
There's a demon in me.
Oh.
There's a demon in me. There's a demon in me. There's a demon in me.
Is that
Just bear. That must be
a hurdy-gurdy?
That must be a hurdy.
Wow.
Actually, no, that's not a hurdy.
Okay.
Now there's only one way.
Dynamics, man.
Time to say my
Yeah.
goodbyes.
I love that.
Come to peace with my life. See the truth in my eyes. Feel it under my skin. And let it into my mind. I'm giving into the fight. Now I'm gonna die. There's a demon in me. There's a demon in me. There's a demon in me. There's a demon in me.
Oh.
Yeah.
And that is that his son singing?
That's his brother.
His brother. Holy shit.
Brother Brandon, who's an insane singer, and he's also a very, very, very good music producer. There's so many things to say about this album, actually. There's so many people on it that are freaking incredible. Like, this is so freaking cool. And how it starts with those taiko drums and those
Yeah.
wooden instruments and stuff. And I think the instrument at the end was probably a yayili tambur, which is like a Turkish instrument that Bear uses a lot. Bear is another one of those composers who, if you listen to his music, you're gonna learn about other cultures. You know,
Yeah, of course.
God of War, Ragnarok, and God of War in general. Like, you know, you listen to that, and there's like Scandinavian singers, Scandinavian instruments. It's super cool. There's one track on this album that he wrote when he was 15 years old, and it starts from the recording that he made when he was 15, and then it crossfades to a modern version with Slash on it. He's been working on this album for, I don't want to say something wrong, but I think like 5 or 10 years, like a super long time, on the side every day while doing, you know, God of War and Lord of the Rings and all this stuff. Like, this is the busiest man on earth, and he's able to write one of the most innovative metal concept albums that's gotten released in a while. It's really cool. He brought so many instruments and so many like orchestras on metal music. It's like it all blends perfectly. It's amazing, and I am baffled by the fact that it doesn't have many views yet. It should.
I mean, it's just like bizarre because like so many people ask for God of, and I can't due to copyright claims and stuff, but you know, but there's so much. I mean, this is incredibly quality, and what I really love, like a couple little musical details, especially, but like I love when you just have the percussive instrument underneath while the singing is happening over top, where it's like instead of going full a cappella or like pulling all the way back, you're having like just out of the ordinary instrumentation, because that like it's like the Mick Gordon effect, where it's like, you know, you think it's going to go somewhere and it doesn't. And I actually love this. This is the kind of stuff that I would show my dad, you know, because it's like that concept stuff is so because it doesn't need to follow any of the rules, which is one of the reasons why we love video game music, is that there's no rules, that you can kind of do whatever, as long as it fits. And this is
interestingly, Bear also collaborated with a comic artist to make like a comic book about this story. So this album has a comic book associated to it that, you know, the music is based on comic book and the comic book is based on the music. It's like a story concept album in the most incredible way possible. It's funny that you mentioned percussion because like I was talking about this with Bear when I interviewed him. It was for God of War, but then we talked about other things as well. It's like there's a level in God of War specifically, Ragnarok. I think it was when you go to Freya's world. Yeah. He basically wrote music and he wrote a whole suite. And in the suite, there's like a layer of percussion that is, you know, the percussion mix that then in the game they choose where to use. Like, oh, I'm going to use percussion here, strings there, or whatever. But he's like, if you check out the percussion mix by itself, there's so many different layers of percussion I added. Like, he added way more layers than they were using it. Like, I bet many of these layers must have been muted because there's way too much information. But I just wrote so many percussion grooves and rhythms because I love doing that. He really goes deep in this stuff. And, you know, you hear that percussion groove and you're like, wow, this sounds cool. But he must have spent so much time over that specific detail. That's why... Right. That this album took so long. It just went super meticulous on every single detail and aspect. And when writing music with this level of detail, it's so hard to make everything shine, make it sound pristine, and make music not like the instrument not fight each other. That's what I felt in the Stellar Braid theme as well. There's so much going on, but somehow it sounds very cohesive and pristine. I don't know how Bear did it, but this album is like, I don't know. This is one for the books. No, I think the album is called The Singularity. There's one track that, you know, it's based on floppy disks. You know the floppy disk sound? Somebody sampled floppy... I think Bear was scoring a movie where he used the sound of floppy disks as an instrument. And then in this track, he used that sound again. There's another track that starts and it's basically a Mega Man tribute. It's like so many of his pieces of music are referential to either soundtracks he made or soundtracks he grew up listening to. And that's the best way to get to know Bear as a composer.
This is something that's really interesting, and it's come up in conversations mostly in regards to gacha games, but I think it's a valid argument where it's like people think that composers will write music to be more catchy so that they make more money and that therefore get people to spend more. But I don't think I know a single composer that sits down and is like,
oh my God,
what can I do? And I'm sure, I mean, like, yes, we want music that, like, moves us, right? But I don't know a single composer that's like, I'm doing this purely for, I mean, yeah, we've all done jobs that we hate, but I don't know a single composer. Yeah. And what's amazing about this particular example with Bear, but also just more broadly speaking too, the fact that composition, singing, whatever, it is really ultimately an act of, like, the soul and the desire to connect and communicate and express oneself. Yeah. And I think, like, I find it interesting that you could learn about who Bear is as a person through the Singularity, but also, like, also what you are as a person, like, you know, with your Contra track, like, yeah, okay, fine, like, Contra has to have a certain sound, but, like, the choices that you're making, you're not just making them because that's what you were contracted to do. You're like, how do I produce something, you know, right? I mean, you tell them, you tell me.
They were very nice, man. Like, specifically the Contra guys, they were like, oh, we just wanted to, like, do your thing with the bass. I'm like, okay. And then I added some weird disco strings or whatever, electronic sounds. And I was like, oh, do you like it? And like, yeah, more of that, just go crazy. And they really encouraged me to do what was me. And that's true.
Express
like,
yourself,
you know, It is also true that some games, they're like, we need this area music to be very catchy because people are going to spend a lot of time in here. And so they gotta, you know, really appreciate the music. But yeah, it's you're writing your music to serve the gamer and be like, oh, I want the gamer to have a very good time in this area. I want to tell this story. It's not like, oh, I want money. Like, the people who say that composers just make music for money, is like, no, like, it doesn't work that way. Most composers especially start out because they're obsessed. And Barry is an example. When he was super young, as a teenager, he just wrote music every day, all day. Like, he made an imaginary movie. I wrote an imaginary soundtrack for this imaginary movie. A whole soundtrack. And that's how with that soundtrack, that's how he got the attention of his biggest mentor, Elmer Bernstein. You know, got him under his wing and basically raised his musical instincts a lot. And that wouldn't have happened if Bear wasn't as obsessed with music as he was when he was younger. And he still is. You know, that's what he does all day, every day, I expect. And that's just passion. Most composers are just crazy like that. You know, we're like, you're the same with, like, you know, singing and YouTube and voice acting.
I do get it. There is a certain, like, degree of, like, this is what I do every day. And, like, you know, sure, there's some luck involved. There always is. But, you know, luck plus positioning equals opportunity. And, I mean, God, for a decade, every single day, I got up and went to bed singing, thinking about singing, how to be the best and how to, like, launch a career and how to guide through those parts. And obviously it didn't work out because of other variables and including like just the industry being a shithole. But
well, I mean, but now you're doing this, right? Like you carved your own space.
Yeah, exactly.
And that took you to where you're at. Yeah. Would you have rather gone different? Like you became like a opera singer touring the world and stuff?
Not under the circumstances that I left it. Let's put it that way. If I was in a better state mentally and the industry was a little bit better, sure. But like, I don't feel any sort of jealousy towards my colleagues that did it. It's
must be
too
like
hard.
Super hard to. And I used to think this also with composers. I used to think, oh, composers who write music for games, they do so because they're very talented. And so if I develop the talent and I develop the skill, I will get in the door. That's my way in. And so I try to work on that a lot and try to publish a lot of music online, blah, blah, to show people, hey, I know how to do this. And then I figured, no, like that's not the thing that actually gets you in the door or gets you, like it's not the only thing that makes this career available for you. One other thing that makes it available is like, for a composer, you gotta be able to cope with the level of stress that comes with the job and all, like it's freaking crazy. Like you gotta be fine with like being rejected all the time, etc. And I'm like, at some point I was like, I don't know if I want this. It's like it's a lot of stuff that I wasn't told. And I imagine like with singing it must be even worse, because if you, especially opera, like you're singing without a microphone and you have to sing in these insanely huge halls. I cannot imagine what that must do to your body, and the pressure of working in the the classical world with so much competition. You gotta deal with so much shit on a mental level where you're like, oh god, like I signed up for the music and the talent and all this stuff, but I have to deal with people who maybe are not super nice.
Yeah. Oh, I dealt with that all the time. I mean, people that were disrespectful or people that were rude or also just, feeling like a number or feeling like I was reduced down to my voice type or, it got to, I mean, there were a lot of wonderful colleagues, and probably that's the one thing I miss the most is like the colleagues, but and singing with an orchestra is like one of the most incredible feelings in the whole wide world. Like singing over the top of an orchestra and like knowing that you're like not being covered by this like 80-person ensemble like right in front of you is one of the most powerful feelings on the planet. Like people want to talk about like shooting a gun or something, but I'll tell you what, singing over the top of an orchestra is like the most powerful I've ever felt. And but yeah, I mean, and it's one of the things about the music industry in general that like it's not understood and no one knows, and it doesn't even, you and I talking about it, I know what you're talking about, but like it's impossible to really comprehend. You can have situations that are similar, but there's nothing that prepares you for like what it means to be an expressive, soulful person that wants to achieve something, and then also having to deal with the baggage of an entire industry and what that baggage brings with it.
Especially like because you can, when you're faced with like somebody who's very toxic, which by the way I've been very lucky, I haven't dealt with that much. But when you're faced with somebody who's very toxic, you have the choice of like, okay, well, you know what, I'll become toxic too, and that will be my shield. And there's people who do that, and that's their way. Yeah. And then there's people who are like, I don't want to do that. I'd rather just not do this and be a better, like, not make myself worse as a human and let this career go. And that's fine.
That's what happened to me.
Yeah, which is great. Like, dude, like, I mean, it's great that you stay true to yourself and you're like happier the way your life turned out. At the same time, like, opera gave you like, now you're the opera singer online that talks about video game music, so that is part of your
the journey. Tree. That's the really incredible thing about having a career on YouTube and being lucky enough to be in a position to, be able to share the power of music and certainly the power of video game music, that while more in the lexicon of modern culture, there is still such a divide in truly understanding what it means to connect with and understand and feel music. And the beautiful thing is that like anybody can do it. We're special, but we're not that special. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, I agree.
Like, and like being able to share that with people. And one of the most gratifying things, is when someone says, hey, I listen to music differently now, right? That is a win. And that's really, yes, making a living, surviving. Those are all important parts of the process, of course, and taking, opportunities when they arise and so on and so forth. But knowing that someone listens to music differently because of you, because of me, because of Davi Voss, because of Jesse, because of Tony, or who are all the other folks that are doing this, like that is the most satisfying thing for me. I live for those comments, you know?
You may hear, like, in a few years, somebody coming to you and be like, hey, I became a musician or a singer because of you.
Yeah, it's already happened. It's like the most incredible. I mean, it's like, it's mind blowing, dude. It's
That's what we do. What we do. We deal with
That's
the
what we
fucking
do,
algorithm every day. You know, it's worth it.
whenever like a non-gamer comes on the channel, I'm like, have you heard this? And it's like the most weird ass like thing that no one ever hears, but it's like really good. It's like Artanelico is one of those where it's like no one knows.
That soundtrack is wild.
Yeah.
Holy
yeah, I
shit.
know. Akiko Shitaka. Yeah. And it's like no one's talking about Artanelico, but it's
Yeah.
like, watch this, boom, and it's like, Artanelico, what's that? Oh my god, it's amazing.
Yeah.
And then suddenly you get like an Artanelico fan, and it's like that easy, you know what I mean? So
Yeah, I hope some people are gonna, sign up for the games we talked about today and check those albums,
yeah.
etc. And if I can leave one last one to recommend to people who are watching, there's a band called Tournament. Fuck, I'm talking about other people's music. I'm not even talking about my music. I just realized I'm like, I could have used this chance.
Yeah, you
to
never talked about your
promote
music.
my music. I don't care. There's a band called Tournament Arc. They made a Chrono Trigger cover of the main theme. You are gonna listen to and witness the best ever Chrono Trigger music arrangement ever made. It's eclectic, maximalist. Sounds amazing. My friend Mason Lieberman is the one who I think arranged it.
Oh, I love Mason. He's gonna come on the channel soon too.
Oh, dude. Okay, then I hope he's gonna show you this track because it's insane.
Well, listen, Alex, thank you so much for spending 2 hours of your life hanging out, and I think
fun.
I think this was good. This ended up being a reaction video for each of us, so I think I might just call this reacting with Alex Moukala.
Sounds great.
So I think we really, I mean, you really, some of these tracks you share with me are really just like, all of them honestly are amazing. So I thank you for taking the time.
Same for you, man. Like, you showed me a bunch of stuff that I'm like, I gotta study this shit now.
And thank you everybody. If I hope you enjoyed this, and feel free to check out Alex's channel and Alex's compositions, of course. And thanks a ton, and we'll both talk to you later. See you guys.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.